Hi guys, welcome back to Jenny's Q&A. Today we have a very special guest, so you won't want to miss this. Sit down, stay, and we'll be right back. Sorry, I just recorded.
Sure.
Um, all right, how are you? How's your day been?
My day has been well. Had a great show. Just had a big meeting with my boss, and that was good. When you have a good meeting with your boss in the work world, it always makes for a better day.
Right, so you weren't in trouble. Everything was
No, no trouble today. So I haven't had one of those meetings in a long time, but when they happen, they're not fun.
I can imagine.
They're not.
Great. Well, John, this is gonna be it's not gonna be that long because I know you are a busy person. I don't want to take too much of your time. I would like to start by just asking, how would you describe yourself in your own words? Because I know that, some people may describe you as a radio host, others may describe you as a dad, husband, professor like me. How would you
Sure.
describe yourself?
I think I describe myself as somebody who is the same in every role.
Hmm.
Uh, I sort of am the same way every morning when my feet hit the ground. I wake up with a great appreciation for life. I tend to be very enthusiastic, sometimes a little too much for people. I am. I try to pretty much have a constant energy, which once again is an acquired taste, even for those who love me. And I attack life. I think is I'm a guy who, whatever the task is in front of me, I attack it. I'm not very nonchalant at anything that I do, except golf. Golf is the only thing where I approach it in life and say, I'm just here to have fun. I'm not trying to beat anybody because it's me versus the course. And most of the time, I can assure you the course wins.
You play golf. I didn't know that. How did you get into golf and do you do it often?
I got into golf because of the fact that I started to love Tiger Woods
Mm.
back in like 1997. I was never a fan of golf, never really watched golf, but the phenom that was Tiger Woods got me to start paying attention to golf. I fell in love with it. I bought myself a set of used clubs at a Goodwill, put together clubs, went out on some really bad courses and played some golf and started to fall in love with the game enough that I went and built a house on a golf course so I could live in a community where I could play golf right in my backyard. And I fell in love with it. And it's one of the things that to me in life is truly an intoxicating thing to get out and play golf. To me, it clears my head, it rejuvenates me. And again, I sort of appreciate nature because I'm not a guy who tends to smell the roses, and I should do more of that.
Mhm.
So golf has really given me appreciation for that.
Oh wow, so it's kind of like a mindfulness practice for you in a way.
Yeah, because I'm not very mindful. I'm not very, it's not like if you're talking about great skill sets, I don't consider myself extremely mindful. Many, many times something will happen to me and somebody will say, wow, that was amazing. You got to do that.
Mm.
And it makes me say to myself, damn, I never even took the time to say to myself, wow, wasn't today extremely special? Sometimes you find yourself you're taking stuff for granted, and that is absolutely something you do not want to do.
That is amazing advice right there because I feel like we all just keep moving and running and doing all of these things so we don't take the time to think like, wow, I experienced this or I'm grateful for this. So that is great advice right there. Thank you for that, John.
I
Um,
appreciate it.
how in other news, how do you first get your start in radio and what drew you to this field? I know you told me a little bit about this, but I would like a refresher.
When I was at Temple University, I had went to Temple and thinking, man, the world deserves to see me on television. I thought I was going to do television. That's what I wanted to do. I was a little impressed with myself. And I got to Temple, and at the time, WRTI was our version of WHIP. WRTI has now become more of a community radio station, whereas at the time it was Temple's. And I got involved with it right away, and then got involved with some of the broadcasting where the talk shows and things like that. And I realized I could do 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes on the local news, or where I'd just be a reporter, or I could go on to a format where I turn on a microphone and I get to decide what I talk about. I get to decide what I react to. It's all about me. And at the time, and still today, that is always something that I do enjoy, is being able to set my own agenda, make my own plan, and have the freedom to do so. So I fell in love with radio at Temple University, and then radio became my goal and my ambition.
No, and I think you made the right choice because we're very appreciative of your voice, your opinions. I mean, John, there's no one like you. Let's just be honest. There's no one with that sense of opinion, that strong opinion.
I many times it gets me in trouble. Like many times I know that there have been even other teachers within Temple who my students have said to them, well, John tells me this. And they'll say, well, I have a disagreement in opinion. And then my student will tell me. And I say, okay, what is their background and what is mine? And that sounds incredibly arrogant. But I always think to my students, I can only tell you what I think. I can only tell you what I feel. And I do that to my listeners every day for 4 hours. Here's what I think. Here's what I feel. At no time do I say, I am the only opinion that counts. Mm-hmm. At no time do I say, I always say, take everyone's thoughts into account and do what's good for you. Make it work for you. And I try to tell that to my students too. My students can't be me, but they can take parts of me or things of my work ethic or things of my planning, and they can say, okay, well, I can do that. I'm never going to be as outspoken as John, but I can be as prepared as John. I can be as methodical about how I go about my business as him. So I always look at it as everybody should be unique. If you go into this business, and that's a nice compliment from you, but if you go into my business, it should be something where absolutely what you do is unique to you. It's like your fingerprint. It's like your DNA.
Something that sets you apart for sure.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I'm currently in that process. So I'm learning from you, and I'm trying to find a balance myself. So.
And it's one of those things that it's important for everybody to just make sure that you don't choose to take a path or you don't choose to portray yourself, especially in a media role, as something you're not comfortable with. Mm-hmm. When I hear about anyone being taught about my industry or speaking about it, and they think there's like a one-size-fits-all answer, that's not true. It's not true. There need to be less outspoken people in the media. There need to be more, I told you, mindful earlier. We got into that discussion. You led me down that road. There are people who tend to be more mindful. I wish I was more mindful sometimes in my approach to the job. But my visceral nature, my energetic nature works for me. There are other people that I work with on my team that at my radio station whose approach is far different, and they are very successful in their own right. Mm-hmm. It's finding what works for you and then polishing that stone up so you make sure it's like a diamond.
Definitely. I mean, now that you talk about that and your personality in the industry, has there been any challenges that you have faced early in your career? And if so, how do you overcame it?
I've told you about it. Is I debuted doing this business, God, like 20, 30 years ago. And I entered and there was no social media. Then I entered an industry that evolved into social media. And now social media encompasses a large part of my day and how we approach my show and how we promote it and everything. So in my mind, it has been one of adaptation that as you enter into a job and you learn, because the job I entered into is not the job that I'm doing today. It's a different job. And if you don't evolve, you will die. You will become the dinosaur bones that a future generation of broadcasters finds and goes, oh, yeah, back in its time, John was successful and did these things. Well, if John's doing the same things in the year 2000 that he did that in the year 2025 that he did in the year 2000, John's not on the air. John's a failure.
That when you say it like that, I mean it sounds pretty
It's
true.
a Yeah, it's important to evolve. It's important to constantly evolve and to constantly realize there are other people that you could. There's always people you can gain knowledge from. I was in a meeting today, and there was two people in their 20s who work on my show, who in a listening session we listened back to the show, and they offered some advice, and both of them I said that's great advice, and take that advice, listen to advice, and then evolve. Learn some things that you can add to your toolkit to make you more valuable.
Definitely. I mean, we all learn from each other in a way.
Sure. Well, some people do. And in my younger life, I learned a lot less from people than I learned today. So always be open to it. If you can learn that lesson early on in your career, you'll have an even better career because you will constantly be ahead of the curve.
You've had a long and successful career in sports talk radio. How has your approach to engaging listeners evolved over the years?
I used to just have to answer a phone call. I used to just have to respond to the day, and if we met listeners out, maybe respond to some of that. But overall, I now have to respond potentially during my show, respond to tweets, respond to social media, check out our YouTube chat, check out stuff that people are saying on Instagram, and be able to respond to it. So it's definitely changed because it used to just be waiting for someone to pick a phone and call. Now, on our show specifically, we hardly take any callers. So it's a much different total experience.
Do you think you enjoy more now than before when you started?
Yes, because I think we get more voices into the show, whether it's people texting, whether it's people on the YouTube chat, whether it's people responding to our Instagram posts, whether it's people tweeting at me directly. I think we get far more feedback. And I think it also tells you a lot more, almost like a case study. What do people like? What do people not like?
No, yeah, and I think it comes when it comes to social media, it can come from both
Sure.
ways. I mean, negatively, positively. How do you take the hate from others?
I try to remember that the only people that I need to love me are my wife and my daughter. If I could get through life and my wife and my daughter love me, then I'm a success. I'm a success. If I can be a good husband, good father, and a good talk show host that people listen to, but I can deal with negative comments from people that I don't know. I look at it as those people don't know me. Maybe they have no reason to love me. So don't worry about them loving me. Just worry about being true to myself, doing my job, and doing it the best of my ability.
Beautiful. I mean, if you're in this industry, you need to have tough skin because
Yes.
otherwise, I mean, you can even fall into depression, and that's just not that's not the goal. So
It's not and it's not, believe me, it's not an industry to get into if you're going to be too hung up on what's going on in your phone. You have to be able to block that out because people are going to tell you you're ugly, you're stupid, you're dumb every day. And you just have to be able to handle it and realize, hey, they keep coming back to listen. So that's the way it goes.
oh yeah, that's very true. And you've worked with some pretty legendary names in sports radio. What's the best piece of advice you've received from a colleague or a mentor?
Very similarly to my social media understanding and response came from working with Shaquille O'Neal, because Shaquille would say to me, I would say, "Did you see what those people were saying about us last night or our last episode or whatever?" And he'd go, "Who?" And I go, "The people, the thing." And he'd go, "Who?" He goes, "We don't know them. Don't worry about them. Don't worry about that. Like, you don't worry about that feedback." So I learned that from Shaquille. And I know that over the years, I was told by a very great baseball manager, Bobby Cox, that he said, I hear you criticize my team all the time, but I don't see you around here enough. If you're going to be critical like that, I want to see you. I want to make eye contact with you. So if I have any issue with you and what you're saying, we could talk it out. And that changed my whole approach too, to make sure I always try to at least periodically make myself available. So if anybody has an issue with me, they can find me.
Yeah, and I think that has also changed. Controversy is often um, dealt with on social media, not in person, not face to face. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't like that. If I have a problem with somebody, I like to take care of it firsthand and in person. So I need to realize that I need to have that same standard for myself.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. We agree then. We're on the same boat.
It's the way it should be.
You, okay, what has been, besides, all of the moments that you've had in radio, what has been one of the most memorable moments of your career on air that stands out to you?
Uh, the mayor of Atlanta literally tweeting at me live on the air during my show to argue with me in a fight. Uh, Being able to interview ex-president Bill Clinton on the radio, being able to
That's pretty cool.
get things. You never know who's listening. There's an actor named Ed Norton who one day just tweeted at me and said how every Sunday morning he listens to my show when I was on my network show, and he pours his cup of coffee and sits there at the table as he reads the newspaper and listens to me on the radio. You never know who's listening. And that's really cool. So I started to used to do an episode called, we would do a segment on my national radio show called Picking with the Stars, where I would pick football games against celebrities. And I was able to get so many celebrities that were willing to come on that I never knew listened or were sports fans. And they actually were like, sure, I'll go on his show. And it was really cool. So it was a lot of fun.
And what would you do in that section? How would the dynamic be?
We'd have a conversation about their love of sports, to take them from, they're in entertainment, they're in music, they're in news. And then at the end, they would pick 3 football games and I would pick 3 football games. And that week I would have to beat the star, pick with the stars, sort of a takeoff on Dancing with the Stars.
That sounds really fun.
So it was a fun concept and we had a good time with
it. That's great. That's great. That's great. I would like to watch that back.
Yeah. Well, we had fun. It was that was mostly just radio though. So it was just radio segment with that, but it was a lot of fun.
That sounds really fun. What is it like to work with Andrew Salsunas, and how do you think you guys complement each other on the show, Kincaid and Salsunas?
I love working with the guy because he's extremely talented. I love working with the guy because, as I say, anybody would be proud to be like his dad. He's got a father. I look at him as like, God, this guy could be my son. And he brings such an interesting perspective and such a different slant to life that I think it's a great give and take. And he is a talented broadcaster. And I always tell him, one day when I wake up late because I can retire, I'm going to enjoy texting him every day and going, good morning. Just like we say to each other now at 5 a.m., but I'll be texting him around 8 a.m., I think.
No, yeah, I've seen some shorts on YouTube about you guys, and I've seen like the debates that you guys would have. How did they come up? Like, is it mainly differences on sports or just
and life and organic? I mean, we're 28 years apart in age, so there's differences. I'm a dad, he's a son. That type of dynamic too. He's now a young father. I'm the sage, wise father of a 21-year-old. So it's like we get into discussions. We go off track sometimes. We see life very differently at times. And so those kind of things have to come about organically, but you just always have to have that safe space. And, it's one of my least favorite terms, but where we know we always are looking out for each other and we're always having fun.
That's great. That is beautiful.
It's a good time.
You need to have a co-host like that, because otherwise, I mean, they would, take it personally
Sure.
or
And we don't have any problem with that.
amazing. Uh, how do you balance humor and entertainment, whether it is on, the show or radio, with the serious topics that you discuss on your shows?
I think I'm just a cut up in life.
Mm.
So I always have used humor as a way to sort of distract from tension and everything like that. I love inserting humor into everything. I try to insert humor into my classroom. I get very comfortable with my students where I'll pick on my students in a fun way. One of our guys in our class he does TikTok dances with his girlfriend. And I never would have predicted that he'd do that. So he's TikTok boy. And it's just the way it is. I try to have that fun where it's a fun space. And I can also take the heat back. So it's good give and take. You have to realize life is short and no argument between us, whether it's political or otherwise, we can all still find so much common ground. And I just tend to be a person who likes to hang out on common ground.
No, yeah, and he still denies the TikTok dances.
Yes, he still.
I'm like, well,
We'll see.
it.
There might be
It's
evidence.
true.
There might be evidence.
All right. How do you manage the balance between the demands of a high-profile radio career and family life?
My wife is incredible, and she realizes that uh, there are things I have to do to build my career and to keep my career where it's at. So she's very, very good at being supportive. But what you have to do is when it's wife time, disconnect and just be a husband.
Mhm.
Don't be John on the radio. Turn it off as best you can. And so that's where you have to do that. You have to totally give people your focus, make plans to spend time with them where it's just you and her, or me and my daughter. My daughter and I'll we'll have a pre-class dinner tonight at Maxie's to
Mhm.
meet my girl. And every week I meet my daughter on campus because I need to be able to hug her. I need to be able to talk to her. I need to be able to look in her eyes and see that she's okay. And I have a feeling I'm going to want to do that when she's 25, when she's 30, when she's 40. I'm still going to want to see her because I know if I look in her eyes, I know exactly what's going on. She can't hide anything from her father.
Mhm. Yeah, there has to be a balance and
You have to.
yeah, manage time as well as possible. So you
Sure.
let the work consume you in any way.
No, you can't. And I'm not splitting the atom. So it makes it pretty easy.
Is there a particular family member or experience that influenced your career in radio?
I don't think so. My dad was a mailman. My mom was a secretary. I used to get told in school that I talked too much. And so I became a talk show host. I used to get told that if I knew my class lessons as well as I knew sports by the nuns back in grade school, well, it paid off. I found exactly where I needed to land. So it worked.
Really, I don't doubt that for a second.
Yeah. Oh, I was trouble. I was trouble. I don't know how. I don't know how they didn't kill me. Is what I would say.
Uh, how has your family supported your career in the broadcasting industry? I know you mentioned your wife, but is there any other way,
Well, I laugh because I have friends who are actresses,
Mm.
and when you Google John Kincaid wife, you will see me with some of these actresses. A friend of mine is on Young and the Restless. A friend of mine is on General Hospital. A friend of mine, and people are like, "You're married to them?" And I'm like, "No, that's not my wife." She tends to stay in the background. My wife likes the background. She doesn't want the public life. Never did. My daughter loves the public life. She's always loved being part of dad's show, being part of whatever dad was doing. She never had a problem with being on air. I wondered many, many times whether she'd follow in my footsteps in some way. She chose a different path in media, but she always enjoyed it. She got a little bit of that stage presence that had always worked well for her.
Yeah, I noticed.
Yes,
I met with her, I noticed, and she's a natural. I mean, she could talk all day long about
she could.
anything, and it would be entertaining.
She
And
could.
just
She
listen.
could. She's just finding her own way. She likes business. She likes the business side of advertising. She likes money, and she doesn't want to struggle. And a lot of media people have to struggle to start out with. She wants to hit the ground running, and she wants to make money. That's her thing. So good for her.
Good for her.
Good
Yes.
for her. She knows what she wants.
Um, and with the amount of travel and late nights involved in radio, does that affect you in any way?
No, because I do mornings. I try to make sure that I don't travel too much, and I try to make sure that I don't take too much time up. Like I try to schedule it out. Like I'll go to a Phillies game tomorrow afternoon after work, but I try to make sure that tomorrow night is free so I can spend time with the family and I can recharge. So make sure the battery. You need to be fresh. You need to be rested. You need to be at your best if you're going to perform.
Perfect. I was gonna ask for advice, and you just gave me the advice. So
There you go.
perfect.
Make sure. Got to be rested.
Great, great, great. So when you look back at your early days in radio, how would you say the industry has changed? I know, social media, obviously. Are there any other ways?
Yeah, that used to be about ratings. Everything was about your ratings. Nowadays, it's all about your revenue. How much money do you make your radio station? How many advertisers line up with your show? That has become the most important thing. It used to be about what were your ratings. Ratings is all that mattered. Now, revenue. Revenue is all that matters. And it really is the entire focus of how you do your job. So you have to be a performer and you got to be a salesperson. And I try to teach that to my students. In fact, I'm teaching that lesson tonight and I will drive it home. It's about being able to be a marketable personality that can sell and being able to be a pitch man and things like that.
Yeah, we are learning about that. I'm excited for
We
that.
are. It's going to be tonight. Tonight's a big one.
Uh, in your view, I'm curious, what does radio still offer that streaming platforms and podcasts can replace?
Immediacy, because you have to seek out a podcast, you have to seek out you have to go download it, you have to find it, you have to go to that way. Whereas, and it's usually you're not listening live. You can listen live to radio. Radio can have live reaction, instant reaction. When something happens and some big news story happens, it's 3 o'clock, it happens. You can turn on the radio and you can react to it immediately. You don't have to wait till the next day's episode of a podcast or the next week's. So that immediacy needs to be top of mind for a broadcaster at all times. What's immediate? What can I have that advantage? So if you're doing radio, that's critically important.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And they are doing now, well, I don't know if now, but recently I've seen how some podcasts on YouTube do lives in order
Yeah,
to
they'll do lives.
yeah, but I think do you think that's edited? Because I do think some of them are still edited, even though they're live.
I think they are. I think there's a lot that do edit, but I think that that's a problem where you say to yourself, uh, like, don't do that. Either do it live or tell people it's edited. Because I can tell when something's edited.
Yeah.
You know, I can tell when something's edited. Is that do it live? Let people see it live. Let people experience it live, and I think that makes a big impact.
Yeah. Yes, 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 yes. Absolutely. What do you think of the current state of sports talk radio? Are there any changes or innovations you hope to see in the future?
I think just more of that we do our show on YouTube every day. So it's like a TV show on radio. I think every single way that you can take your spoken word and then you can take it and you can make it into a visual element that makes it easier to be able to distribute on platforms like Twitter, like Instagram and everything is incredibly important. Very, very important. If you have to have that, that has to be the next step.
I hope to see that more.
There will be. There will absolutely be more of that.
How do you see the next generation of radio hosts evolving? What qualities will they need to succeed in a changing media landscape?
Got to be multimedia, obviously multimedia savvy. Got to be tech savvy as far as production. A lot of people now produce on their own content, want to be their own content producers. So you have to have that technical background and that savviness that I never had to have when I started out my career. So those type of things are incredibly important. The next generation better find ways to stand out because it's a much more saturated market for those type of things. So you better find a way to stand out. You better have your own specific thing. And I don't say shtick. Your own specific personality must come through at all times.
Mm. Yeah.
Very critical.
You think it's more about personality and identity rather than skill sets or,
100 times. 100 times. Your personality coming through, your own unique persona, your unique perspective, your unique vision and voice is so important. It's absolutely the most important thing. It's much more, that sounds much more nebulous, like not as, like it shouldn't be as important, but it is.
perfect.
That's great.
um, yeah, because if everybody acts the same, what's the point, right?
Sure. Absolutely. Got to be different. Got to find a way to be different, stand out. Your perspective, your energy, your that no one else is you. You're different. You're unique in the way it works.
Love it, John. How do you
A lot
stay
of fun.
relevant and fresh in an industry where trends and technologies change so quickly?
Surround yourself with younger people
Hmm.
as you age. Make sure you are on top of the current trends and the current things. Don't just read what you're comfortable with. Read what someone who's 30 years old reads about. Understand those type of things because you have to have it. You have to evolve. Again, it's got to be the evolution. Got to be fresh. And if you need to learn that from other people, be open, be a sponge, and learn. Because the minute you stop learning is the minute you just dry up. That's where it's done and it's over.
Well, thank you so much. Last question. Who's your
Yes.
favorite student?
What do you say?
Who's your favorite student?
My favorite student. My favorite student is a person. My favorite student is a person who I see evolve. I see them take things and take advice and find things that they're told, and then I see them incorporate them and make it part of their own suit of armor. And that's always my favorite student. And I've got a few of them this year, so that are doing that really well as far as understanding. Okay, I told you to do this, and then I see them and I go, oh, you can do that. They can do those things, and but I want to create, like, if I have a room of 12 people, I want to have 12 unique products, 12 unique skill sets, and I want every one of my students to understand why they're unique, have confidence in why they're unique and what they bring to the table, and then just try to drill them on do better with this, fix this, tighten this up, and it gets nitpicky as it goes along, but it ends up paying off for a lot of them.
Well, I'll take it.
You should. You should. You should.
Well, we talk about your early life, your career, the innovations that are going on in the radio industry. So thank you so much for meeting with me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Have a good one.
I will see you a little bit.